Welcome to Sweet Speak. I'm JD Miller, and I'm excited for today's show. Today, we're joined by Sid Dutta. Sid is the founder and CEO of Privaclave. So I'm excited to have Sid on. He's a leader, an industry leader, and expert with multiple patents actually in the cybersecurity space, specializing in data privacy and protection and cloud security. He's got an extensive background running large data protection and privacy programs across multiple large corporations. Now, Sid founded Privaclave and built an automated and intelligent solution to solve the various challenges enterprises face in securing their most sensitive assets, data. Needless to say, Sid's a cybersecurity expert, 23 years experience leading companies like American Express, WorldPay, Activision Blizzard King, Voltage Security Data, and more. Sid, welcome to Sweet Speak.
Thank you so much, Jerry. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's great to see you and connect with you. After a while.
We've shared the stage many times over the years, and excited to see you again. And I want to start off as we move into 2025. What do you think are the biggest reasons traditional security measures are struggling to keep up with today's threats?
Well, I think before we even talk about today's threats, I think there's a lot to talk about traditional measures struggling to keep up with yesterday's threats, right? So, as kind of you've seen so many of the data breaches happening, and for the reasons that have been discovered, it's pretty concerning. I think in a lot of cases, enterprises have evolved and matured, and security teams are doing a tremendous job in combating cyber attacks. But in a majority of cases, we have a lot of ineffective measures, if you will, that are still in practice and predominantly based on some perceptions and beliefs, that have not been, true, and lack of awareness or constraints, with cybersecurity budget, resources, technologies, and tools, and the decisions, that are based on these factors, that lead most of the enterprises to resort to implementing controls that are more to be compliant, or checking the box, from an audit perspective. Business teams are continuously innovating to enhance their services and processes, and drive more productivity and throughput, and that is leading to more consumption and processing of data to derive critical insights, to drive more favorable business outcomes. But in the process, the traditional security guardrails can't keep up with the data explosion, rapid cloud migration, and the usage of third-party services. And particularly with the advent of generative AI, rapid development and integration of large language models into the business operations, and particularly client-facing applications have practically outpaced the establishment of robust governance and security measures. So this accelerated adoption, obviously has left many enterprises and their applications vulnerable, to significant risks. Now, the key point here is while enterprises are adopting AI, the hackers are also now equipped with AI as well, and weaponizing them to generate even more advanced attacks with enhanced scale and sophistication.
AI can be both an asset and, let's be honest, potentially a vulnerability for enterprises. So how can companies balance leveraging AI for their business processes and services, if you will, without exposing themselves to AI-driven threats and risks?
Yeah, I think there's no stopping to AI adoption in industry, right? And so we need to get over that to AI or not to AI, part, right? That's pretty much set. Now, based on that premise, enterprises ideally need to have a very strategic approach towards AI adoption, with a very comprehensive risk management framework in place. A good, threat modeling that enables them to anticipate, better how AI can be used maliciously, both internally and externally. And traditional ineffective security controls will just not make the cut, because the scale and sophistication of AI-powered cyber attacks are just going to be tenfold than what it is today. An average enterprise, gets attacked 200 times a day, and with AI-powered, tools in the arsenal of attackers, that just going to be like 10 times. Now, besides taking a robust and proactive security and governance process, education and awareness, and the guardrails to use AI responsibly. I think from my perspective, as we're in the data security world, data needs to be protected at the data level, right? Not around the perimeter. So I like John Kinderberg's some of the statements within the zero trust, architecture. Who's the creator of zero trust? That he talks about this inside-out approach of securing the protect surfaces, rather than scrambling across the innumerable attack surfaces in the age of AI. And then the cybersecurity framework needs to integrate AI security measures, proactively. And the key point is it's not really a one-time thing, right? I mean, you just don't implement a program and then put some guardrails around it and you forget about it. It has to be a very continuous and intelligent process. So cybersecurity needs a major paradigm shift, because at the end of the day, you can't bring a knife to a gunfight, right? So defending your company against AI-powered attacks will also require AI-powered tools.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. Let's talk responsible AI. How do you define that in the context of data security? And then also, what guidelines or principles do you believe organizations should follow to implement AI responsibly?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of companies, come up with their responsible AI framework and different principles. But in general, there's a commonality, on the framework regarding essentially setting some ethical standards that promotes safety, fairness, accountability, transparency, and all. So this model encapsulates principles and practices for ensuring AI systems are used responsibly across all stages of their life cycle. Now, as far as the context of data security is concerned, the privacy and security principle of responsible AI focuses on ensuring that the collection, use, and handling of data in AI systems protects individuals' privacy and safeguard data against unauthorized access or breaches. That entails taking a proactive data-centric security approach to ensure data is effectively protected, collected to the extent of the necessity and the purpose of the business, informing the purpose of the data collection and usage, and ensuring AI models are being trained in a secure manner. Because we have a lot of the OWASP top 10 risks that have been laid out in terms of training data, poisoning, sensitive information disclosure, and then of course they need to be trained so that it doesn't impact the privacy of individuals and prevent any sensitive data, not only just going into these LLM models, but even handling the output that comes out of this large language models. And there's very interesting aspect of when we talk about data protection by design, right? Which essentially came up with the GDPR, the privacy regulations were into effect, and that applies to AI models as well, right? Because as we are developing applications that are integrating AI or creating new models, you will have to ensure that they are built with data protection by design in mind. But I think we are at the phase of adoption of AI that has already outpaced the implementation of the responsible AI frameworks. In a lot of cases, it's less about data protection by design, but it's more about data protection by redesign, which obviously seldom comes to fruition. And enterprises obviously need to adopt solutions that does allow the use of AI securely in an automated and a non-invasive manner, because you will need to empower the business to use AI efficiently and responsibly without getting in the way or putting in effective guardrails, because they will get around those guardrails if those impede their abilities to exploit the full potential of AI to enhance their business processes and services.
Let's pull that thread about privacy and security regulations a little bit more. They're evolving rapidly worldwide. So how can AI help organizations ensure compliance while also managing the challenges of data localization and privacy laws?
Well, potential is unlimited. I mean, I get very excited when I think about the opportunities that lie in front of us. Besides what we have already have in place within most enterprises, where AI powered advanced threat detection capabilities to detect any sort of anomalous or suspicious activities around threat intel. AI can be a powerful tool for organizations to navigate the complexities of the compliance with data localization and privacy laws. Starting with automated compliance monitoring, to track any non-compliance in real time, to course correct processes, and getting updated with regulation and law changes and alerting organizations to align, to real-time data classification and tagging for localization, to automatically pseudonymizing or anonymizing sensitive data, and intelligently automatically routing data, based on these regional laws pertaining to cross-border, data transfers. And even then getting to even generating, compliance reports automatically and provide proof of compliance when audited. So I think the opportunities are innumerable.
As AI is increasingly weaponized, let's say, to enhance persistent threats, what do you think are the key vulnerabilities organizations need to be aware of, and how should they respond?
Wow, I think it's going to get worse. Right?
No,
So,
no.
yeah, the enhancement, in scale, scope, sophistication, and the persistence of cyber threats in the new age is and will be, multifold with AI weaponization. And with advanced phishing and social engineering attacks, that are highly convincing and personalized, that can bypass these traditional, detection methods, to even like deep fakes that can impersonate and mislead users, or the general population, to even adapting and evolving malware that can autonomously, decide when and where to, launch attacks and evade, the traditional detection and mitigation, processes, to, even AI defense poisoning. The tools that we have that are AI powered, I mean, they could essentially poison, even those. And then you can even do an AI augmented insider threats, where insiders equipped with the knowledge of an organization's systems, can use AI tools to exfiltrate data or damage, critical infrastructure more effectively. And others are like, AI augmented denial of service attacks, so on and so forth. So I think to respond to these, enterprises need to adopt, AI-based defensive technologies that are capable of detecting advanced threats, adapting to new tactics, and mitigating risks in real time. There's a lot of investment that needs to go into the threat intelligence and monitoring to stay informed about new AI-driven threat vectors, and implement continuous monitoring, solutions that can detect anomalies, correlate, data points, and provide early warnings of potential breaches. So having a strong, continuous, automated, data-centric governance and data protection framework also kind of helps, besides fostering a very security-conscious, culture within the enterprise.
So let's talk end-to-end protection. What are the current challenges in achieving that end-to-end data protection, and how can AI-driven solutions help organizations manage data security throughout its life cycle?
I think there's the long, known phrase that we have heard when someone actually mentioned that for a specific, context, and kind of applies to a lot of things, not just cybersecurity, that if it's not automated, it's broken, right? And when I see the landscape with data security, particularly in today's world, and how it's going to get worse in tomorrow's world, that if data security is also not continuous, intelligent, integrated, and automated, it's broken, right? Because we have built all these different silos and point solutions to address certain things, where risk identification tools and technologies and processes have been separately managed from a ownership perspective, as well as where there's no continuum between risk identification to risk remediation. So enterprises, I think, need to start with the protect surfaces in an inside out approach, and assume that the attacker is already present within the network. And that's like one of the other things that John Kinderberg, the creator of Zero Trust, also mentions, which I, very much am fond of that, statement, that you always assume that you are already, you have an attacker inside the network. And then there was one security veteran who told me several years back that there are two types of enterprises, one who has been breached and the other who doesn't know about it. So I think cybersecurity and particularly data security needs a major paradigm shift to simplify and transform by adopting a continuous and runtime and intelligent, sensitive data discovery and classification, an immediate elevation and automatic elevation of the data security posture from identifying that risk to remediating that risk. And when you are protecting data, it needs to be persistently protected. It needs to be data centric, while at rest or in transit or even in use. And that should not be considered as three different ways of doing it. Because I hear a lot of people say, hey, we have our data encrypted at rest in our database, and we have TLS, which is protecting the data in transit. In use, we are kind of still struggling with that. At the end of the day, the data needs to be persistently protected. So while it's at rest, while it's moving, or even in use, it stays protected. And all of these needs to be non-invasive and automated. So you can't really have any sort of impact to the applications. So it needs to be zero application touch and totally abstracted from the tech stack, because that's the biggest barrier that I've found in the last 10 years of my career, where enterprises struggle, that when implementing the right level of security and data security in general has been very invasive, complex, time-consuming, and expensive. And that's where they can't afford to spend 6 months and hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on this, and hence the resort to more compliance and basic ineffective controls that doesn't really meet the bar in terms of protecting data and preventing data breaches.
So with AI transforming the industry, what ways does AI offer unique advantages for data security that traditional security approaches just can't match? And two-parter here for you. What advice would you give to businesses about integrating advanced data protection technologies without overwhelming their existing tech teams? That's a hard ask.
That's true. Yeah, because I'll probably answer the first part. I'm sorry, the latter part first, and then we'll talk about some of the advantages. So I think, as I was talking in the last section, where we want a world where data security kind of becomes table stakes, and it's just there, right? And you have to ensure that the adoption of these data security tools and technologies are non-invasive, are not impacting the business developers or the business application teams. It just should be a layer that enables data security by default and by design. So business developers or application developers can focus on the value that they're creating, and let automation and AI-driven automation, particularly, take care of that, the whole security aspect, so that they can exploit, the full potential, of AI and other technologies and advanced capabilities that the industry has already kind of adopted and offered, without worrying, about the privacy and security of the data. And they don't really need to bypass anything, because you just made it, baked into their, day-to-day life. Now, when it comes to the transformation of the industry and what AI offers and has unique advantages, particularly in the data security world, where traditional security approaches can't really match. They stem from AI's ability to process and learn, from vast amounts of data, adapt to evolving threats, and automate complex tasks. So from real-time threat detection and response to advanced, pattern recognition, from automated threat intelligence to efficient data classification and protection, from scalability and efficiency to enhanced, fraud detection, etc. So AI brings unique advantages to data security by offering real-time adaptive, threat detection and advanced anomaly analysis, even the automated response capabilities, and the scalability, that traditional security approaches can't really match. AI kind of, brings that to the table. So by integrating AI into their cybersecurity strategies, organizations can create a more dynamic, responsive, and comprehensive security posture that keeps pace with the evolving threat landscape.
So to wrap up and looking ahead, I always love gazing into the crystal ball, looking ahead. What advancements in AI do you think will have the most transformative impact on enterprise security? And what should businesses be doing now to prepare for these changes?
Yeah, this could take a while and a totally different, separate session, right? When we talk about the specifics around the various, facets across enterprise security where AI could play a role in advancements, in whether threat intel, threat hunting, or threat simulation, red teaming, self-learning in cyber defense, authentication, access control, incident response, all of that stuff. So I think we can't really predict too far out as to what innovations and advancements could happen with AI in the next 3 to 5 years, or even a decade down the line. Our assumptions could just entirely fall by the wayside, right? I mean, it's just such a rapidly changing world. But in the generalization aspect, if we were to generalize, I believe that there will be these major phases of evolution that both cyber attacks that are AI powered and enterprise security that is AI driven could traverse over a period of time. I think the first one is that I think we're probably already there in a lot of cases is moving from the manual human led or human managed processes to more automation, right? So there's a set of repeated tasks that a certain thing needs to do under certain guidelines. You're automating that part, right? And then there's a lot of cases we've already done it. In a lot of cases, we're still resorting to a lot of manual controls, particularly in the aspect of data security. There's still a lot of things that are done manually where it needs to get to that automated phase. From automation, I think where it's going to evolve to more intelligence, right? Of course, with artificial intelligence, that will operate on data or and create some processes that they are trained on, particularly with certain algorithms and some training data, and then obviously there's a constraint to that to how far they could actually do based on what the guardrails have been set. From that point, I think we are going to go to a phase of more self-learning, right, where models essentially will start learning with more and more, whether it's reinforcement learning, through human feedback, and it's going to be correcting itself. It's going to be getting better with more data points that come to its place, and then the model just gets better. To a phase where things are going to be just autonomous. Right? We have seen a lot of talks and implementation about agentic AI, where things are essentially more autonomous. They can actually do a lot of things by themselves, without requiring that assistance or provided some sort of rules or instructions. And finally, I think we'll get to the point where there's a lot of talk about the theory of artificial general intelligence, where AI essentially have the ability to think and analyze and make decisions like a human being. So I think it'll be potentially a full circle ride, where a human intelligence is going to be recreated within machines. It's going to be a fascinating world that we are, up against. And it's just going to be something that we'll all witness in a few years down the line.
And hopefully it's all in the power of good, right? All of the power of good. As we wrap up here, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. Talk to me, what does Privaclave have going on right now?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, we're very excited, after we launched, Privaclave. So essentially, it's a data security and privacy platform, and of course, AI powered to simplify and transform data security. So basically, we have kind of gotten a few of those principles together and addressed some of those challenges. There's basically, if you were to sum it up, the foundational tenets of Privaclave has been to pivot, from this targeted static scanning of data stores to identify data, which essentially the inventory gets outdated pretty soon, and I've kind of lived that life over the last few years as well, to a more continuous and runtime sensitive data discovery and classification. The other aspect, what it is also addressing, is that this gap between as risks are identified and an ocean of metadata that gets dumped into someone's dashboard to analyze and assess where the risks are, and then prioritize them, and then figure out what security controls that need to be put in place, and then taking years to implement those security controls. So that wide window of exposure that exists today, Privaclave has kind of made that as an immediate elevation point, right? So as you discover risks, you remediate it. Now, when it comes to data protection, whether it's tokenization, encryption, pseudonymization, anonymization, masking, regardless of what term you call it, that persistent data protection, we have kind of made that non-invasive and automated, because that's one of the major challenges that I lived through, and a lot of the industry peers can resonate with that. And it's totally abstracted, from the application stack or the data pipelines. So it's zero application touch, transparent, automated, data-centric protection, all powered through AI.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, best of luck to you, Sid. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us here today on SweetSpeak. If you want to check out past episodes of SweetSpeak, you can go to jamesduane.com. Sid, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, JD, and talk to you soon.